What is up, everybody? Back with the discography ranking here today. With this one, it's going to be Savatage. Freaking amazing band, one of my all-time favorites. They formed back in 1979 and originally went by the name Avatar, and that was for about the first 3 or 4 years of the band. Then they switched their name to Savatage in 1983, just before their debut album came out. They've got 11 full lengths, and I'm also going to include their 1984 EP, The Dungeons Are Calling. So 12 albums I'm going to go through here. And that classic lineup was absolutely amazing. Chris Oliva on guitar, who was one of the best of all time. He tragically passed away in 1993, unfortunately. John Oliva on vocals, who has a freaking really powerful voice, really unique sound. And Johnny Lee Middleton on bass and Steve Wilcolt on the drums. So great lineup there. But even after Chris passed away, they always had incredible guitar players, whether it was Al Pitrelli, Alex Skolnick, Chris Caffrey. All those guys were great. And overall, just amazing band. So this is just my opinion of their albums here. Here we go. Starting off the list at the bottom is going to have to be Dead Winter Dead from 1995. Not that it's a terrible album or anything, just for me, I don't really love this style all that much. It's a bit too theatrical, too orchestral, kind of too Christmassy sounding for my liking. Although there are a few songs on here that kind of sound like the classic Savatage, a little bit more straightforward. There's some really nice shredding on some of it, such as on like Doesn't Matter Anyway, and that one does feature John Oliva on the vocals. He only sings two songs. Two songs he does lead vocals on here are that one and I Am, which are two of the better songs on here. Zach Stevens does the rest of the vocals. I don't like his voice as much. It's okay, but as far as Savatage goes, I want John Oliva singing. The guy just has super powerful vocals. Just love his style. And as far as the guitar playing on this album goes, it was their first to feature Chris Caffrey, who he had been like on and off a touring member since 1987. He's a good guitar player. Also, Al Pitrelli does some guitar on this, and he freaking shreds. Love his playing. I'm a big Megadeth fan. Of course, he was in Megadeth a little bit, and he is just a really great guitar player. And as far as this album goes, it is kind of the beginning stages of what later went on to be Trans-Siberian Orchestra, so that's kind of interesting. But as I said, for me, I don't love the style of this, so it's got to be number 12 for me, Dead Winter Dead. Next up at number 11 is Fight for the Rock from 1986. Now, this is kind of a weird album because it's sandwiched between two really good albums. So from the outside looking in, you would assume that this is going to be a pretty solid album as well, but it's really not. It's not terrible by any means, like a lot of people act like it is, but it's just kind of a weak, not really that memorable album. Overall, it's not as heavy as the other albums from the 80s by Savatage, and kind of get the feel on this one that maybe they were trying to get a little bit more commercial and it didn't really work out too well. But there is a few okay songs on here for sure. Like the title track isn't bad. Looking at these, you know, The Edge of Midnight and Hide are pretty cool. She's Only Rock and Roll isn't bad. But a couple of these, like Crying for Love and Lady in Disguise, you know, just not very good. And there's a pretty weak Badfinger cover on here of the song Day After Day I don't really enjoy. There's also a Wishing Well cover, so two of the songs are covers. There's a redone version of Out on the Streets, which was from their first album, Sirens. So, I mean, it's an okay album, but overall not that good. So it's here at number 11, Fight for the Rock. Coming in at number 10 is The Wake of Magellan from 1997. Now, this one does have the exact same lineup as Dead Winter Dead from 1995, but this one is a bit heavier and darker than that album. It's a bit more consistent, in my opinion, so I prefer this one. Paul O'Neill, of course, co-writes all the music and does all the lyrics. John Oliva also helped write pretty much all of this stuff, and he does lead vocals on two of the songs again, and Zach Stevens does the rest. Once again, my favorite song is with John on vocals, Another Way. That one is just super heavy, hard-hitting, great song. Also really like Blackjack Guillotine. That one's got a super cool, really atmospheric, dark intro, and then the riff is really heavy when it transitions in. Paragons of Innocence is another really cool song that has John doing the vocals. But overall, not a bad album, but again, it's one that I don't really go back to all that much. But there are a few songs on here that I really, really like. So it's here at number 10 for me, The Wake of Magellan.
Wash your women in your whiskey with your futures in the past, and you're staring up at heaven from the bottom of a glass.
Next up at number 9 is Handful of Rain from 1994. Now, this is their first album without Chris Oliva, who passed away the year before this, but they did get one of the best possible replacements on guitar, which was Alex Skolnick. This is their only album to feature him doing lead guitar, and he does a fantastic job. Some really good riffs and solos and really good tone on here, but, you know, he's not Chris. They're both great, but I do like Chris a little bit better. And it's kind of weird on the credits for this album. Like, Steve Wacoltz and Johnny Lee Middleton were credited as playing on this album, but apparently they didn't do anything for the album. It was all John Oliva doing the drums and the bass, and he also did backing vocals, some lead guitar, some piano. So, I mean, he's a really talented musician that I think a lot of people probably kind of overlook a little bit, but John can freaking pretty much do it all. So he's great, and he does all that. Paul O'Neill also does some keyboards and rhythm guitar, the lyrics, the producing. But then you got Alex, who does lead guitar, and Zach Stevens, who did all the lead vocals on here, who, again, I don't like as much as John, but he's good enough. He is pretty good. But looking at these songs, Taunting Cobras is really heavy and one of the best songs on the album, the title track, and probably Castles Burning, which has a really great solo from Alex. But overall, not a bad album. Not my favorite, but it is pretty good. Handful of Rain, number 9.
There in the silence, something hides, something lies, something dies, something breathes.
Next up at number 8 is Poets and Madmen from 2001. This is their most recent album to date, and it's really solid. I actually do dig this one quite a bit. So the rest of these I really like. And this one does feature John doing all of the lead vocals, which is cool. Again, I love his voice. Chris Caffrey does most of the lead guitar on this. There is some, he's credited with doing all the guitars, but as usual with the credits with Savatage, it's a little weird because there's like additional credits that have Al Pitrelli doing some lead guitar as well. Jeff Plate does the drumming, Johnny Lee Middleton on bass. Looking at these songs, Stay With Me a While is great to open it up. There in the Silence, that keyboard intro is freaking sick. Just really awesome. And a couple others on here that are really good. I Seek Power is awesome. Surrender, Awaken, The Rumor's cool. But overall, cool album cover as well. I really dig that. And yeah, good stuff. Poets and Madmen, number 8. Next up at number 7 is Streets, a rock opera from 1991. Now this album is really progressive, really dark, just really cool overall. The first song, Streets, is incredible. Again, super dark atmosphere on that. The riffing is amazing. Overall, the guitar playing from Chris is great as usual. The like high screams from John on this song when it's like midway through and he's kind of singing along, hitting high screams with the main riff is just absolutely incredible, and all the kind of keyboards and background noise and like the kids talking and whatever makes it sound super cool and dark and just a really awesome song. Definitely one of their best of all time. Looking at the rest of this stuff, Agony and Ecstasy is easily one of Chris's best riffs of all time, and just it gets super heavy when it hits the verses with the vocals, and the background riff is just super heavy and awesome, and the guitar solo in that song is fantastic. Another one that's really good on here, Jesus Saves, and just top to bottom, there's some really good stuff. Ghosts in the Ruins is a really cool song, but really good album. Streets, a rock opera from 1991, number 7. Coming in at number 6 is Edge of Thorns from 1993. Now, this is their last album with Chris Oliva, and this is one of his best performances. Going through and listening to all these solos again, just absolutely incredible on pretty much every song. Zach Stevens does all the vocals on here, who, again, I've said it a couple times already. I don't like him as much as John, but he is good. Looking at these songs, man, the title track starts off with that piano. Typically, I don't love piano, but that sounds really cool. And just the guitar solo and just the build up in this song is super majestic and awesome. Really, the first four songs on here are probably my favorites overall. He Carves a Stone, Lights Out, and Scraggy's Tomb are all amazing, very heavy, great shred from Chris. But a couple of these others, Follow Me is not the best song overall. It's kind of slow for me until like midway through, and there's just a really beautiful, epic, majestic solo from Chris. And then Degrees of Sanity, that one is one of Chris's best solos ever. He's just shredding like a madman on that song. Super fast, amazing guitar tapping, the finger tapping he does, which always kind of reminded me a little bit of Eddie Van Halen, but kind of like Eddie Van Halen on steroids is what I would always say Chris is kind of like. But yeah, man, amazing album, Edge of Thorns, number 6. Next up at number 5 is The Dungeons Are Calling EP from 1984. Really killer stuff here, super consistent. There's 6 songs on it, which might be what's slightly holding it down here at number 5 for me. Yes, it's amazing, but the other albums that are ahead of this are all amazing as well, and there's just more material on those. But these are all really good songs here, and the lineup is great. I love the overall feel and tone of this EP here. Chris is great as usual on guitar. John, just amazing voice, just his vocal delivery and style, the screams he hits are just all awesome. And Keith Collins does the bass on this, and he was their bassist for the first 2 studio albums and this EP here. Johnny Lee Middleton didn't come along until Fight for the Rock, and of course Steve Wilcolt's on the drums. So really solid lineup. Looking at these songs, my favorites, if I had to pick 3, I would probably go with By the Grace of the Witch, The Whip, and City Beneath the Surface. But again, really consistent stuff here. The Dungeons Are Calling, number 5. Next up at number 4 is Sirens, their 1983 debut album. Now, this one has the exact same feel and tone and atmosphere as the Dungeons Are Calling EP. They were both recorded the same day, actually, and were all originally supposed to be on the debut album, just for, there wasn't enough space to put all the songs on the first debut here, so they put the other stuff on an EP a year later. But this one's got 9 songs on it. Again, love this dark atmosphere, the speed, the rawness of this, just great classic stuff. The title track is amazing. Holocaust, Rage, I really love. The guitar solo in that one is just blistering fast and amazing. Twisted Little Sister, On the Run, all this stuff is great. Just amazing debut album from these guys. Sirens, number 4. Next up at number 3 is Power of the Night from 1985. Killer album here, and this one's super cool, I think, because it's got that classic, raw, aggressive, dark feel of the first album and the EP from 1984, but the production's a little bit better. The sound overall is slightly better because they got on a bigger label, which was Atlantic, and it's also produced by Max Norman, who is a great producer. So love the sound on here. Still got that great classic Savatage feel. The title track is amazing, kind of got that dark, creepy intro, and then it transitions into just that amazing Chris Oliva riff. Unusual is awesome. Warriors, Necrophilia. Could list pretty much all these songs almost. Skull Session is another favorite on here, but top to bottom, really awesome. Power of the Night, number 3. Coming in at number 2 is Gutter Ballet from 1989. Now, this was their most diverse album to this point, but I think it's done extremely well. Just a really epic album with the symphonic elements, the keyboards, the pianos. But it's done extremely well, as I said. There's still some of that classic, really hard-hitting, heavy, aggressive Savatage, but mixed with some more dynamic stuff that's a little bit softer, but it's intertwined very well. Looking at some of these songs, like the title track is just super epic and majestic, and love the rhythm and the riffs and just the solo that it builds up into. Just flows super nicely. Looking at the rest of this stuff, She's in Love, Hounds, and The Unholy, that three-song stretch is just amazing. Hounds has maybe my favorite Chris Oliva guitar solo. It's definitely in the top 5. He is just shredding insane on that song. Just amazing stuff. And to close out the album, Thorazine Shuffle is just amazing. So top to bottom, I really do dig this a lot. I think I listed it as my #1 album of 1989 in that list I did a while back. So big fan of this. It's here at number 2, Gutter Ballet.
24 hours of go, yeah. Gotta escape, can't drink anymore.
And taking the #1 spot is Hall of the Mountain King from 1987. An absolute masterpiece, one of the best metal albums of all time. Love the overall sound and feel of this album. The atmosphere is really cool, kind of dark. It's the first with Paul O'Neill producing, which is cool. Chris Oliva on guitars on freaking the top of his game here. A lot of his best work is all over this album. John sounds amazing on vocals as usual, and the rhythm section is extremely tight, as it always is with Savatage from Johnny Lee Middleton and Steve Wilkoltz. But looking at these songs, 24 Hours Ago to start it off, that's my favorite Savatage song of all time. So amazing start to the album. Love the riff in that one. It's really heavy. Love the vocals. The guitar solos all throughout the song are just incredible from Chris. Looking at the rest of this stuff, Beyond the Doors of the Dark is great. Legions has a really cool intro with the tapping guitar. Just amazing stuff. Strange Wings. The title track is another one that's one of their best songs of all time. Just amazing stuff there. The Price You Pay, White Witch, and Devastation. So freaking start to finish, this is a masterpiece. Very consistent, amazing album, and it is here at #1 for me, Hall of the Mountain King, and that does wrap up the discography ranking for Savatage. Fantastic band. So let me know what you guys thought and give me your ranking of their albums in the comments. And until next time, thank you for watching.